The royals are always busy all year long, but in 2025 in particular, we had a lot of big moments from the royal family. So Charlie, let's recap some of what we think are the biggest 2025 moments from the royal family. We have to start, of course, with Kate's return to the public eye, return to her official duties in a larger capacity than we had seen previously.
Yeah, so Kate did do a few events at the end of 2024. She obviously announced in March 2024 that she was diagnosed with cancer. She really retreated from the spotlight in order to undergo treatment privately, in order to take time to kind of recover. She has since said that it was a far more grueling process than she ever could have anticipated. Right. And Buckingham Palace has been very, very careful about committing Kate to anything too soon. Absolutely. So, basically ever since she has, announced that she had cancer, they've hesitated to pile too much on her plate, and they've hesitated to kind of say she'll be at this event in 6 months, right, and so on and so forth. We did really see a bit of a shift, though, at the start of 2025. Whether or not the palace was saying Kate will be there, she was there. She really turned up.
She did.
To almost everything that could have possibly been in her schedule. She looked brilliant and radiant and happy and healthy every time we saw her out in public.
She was busy too.
She really was, and she really kind of ran the kind of spectrum of things that she could have possibly been attending. She was at sports events. She was at black tie events. Right. She was at kind of, just popping down the local shops to kind of chat with people down there.
Yeah.
She really did do a huge variety of events. And obviously, recently we saw her at her Carol concert, which we've discussed at great length, which aired last night, But I think that it's been a really positive year, at least for royal watchers.
For sure.
Because they've been able to see Kate really returning to what she once was before this horrible health diagnosis kind of, impacted her and her family. Yeah. And, we've seen her out with her kids a lot more too, which has been so wonderful. And I think it's really, 2025 for me was really a kind of teaser of what is to come when William and Kate ascend the throne.
I know, I think that too. And I think anybody who has ever been touched by any kind of illness, even if they're not royal fans, were probably all excited. I know I was, to see her get back into these royal events, just so we could kind of see her and see what she was up to. She started the year in January by visiting the hospital where she received treatment, which was, well, I guess it was a little bit like mid-January, but it was the first time we really got to see her out and about. It was our first public event that she attended, which was just so heartwarming, so lovely to see, and to be able to breathe, as a fan in and out a little bit, that she looked great and seemed great. And to end the year with her having her usual festive holiday treats was so exciting. And of course, like you said, we saw so much of the kids this year, which is a next big moment that we got from the royal family for us. I love getting to see the kids because they're so fun. They make fun faces. They just look like they're actually enjoying themselves. Not that the rest of the royal family isn't, but they get to have fun. They get to be kids. So many sporting events this year. Charlotte got to go to the Euro, the women's Euro.
And this is something that I was going to mention. I feel like this year more than ever, we saw Kate and William kind of cherry picking events for specific children.
Yeah.
So rather than kind of it being an all or nothing point of view where like either all three of you come or you all stay at home, Charlotte attended the women's Euro, which was amazing. But then you saw George attending his own events, and then you would see all three of them at certain events where it was more appropriate. Poor old Louis, and we are obviously such big fans of Louis.
Number one fans over here.
Number one fans. But, it was very much a reflection of how Charlotte and George are growing up and growing into their roles.
Right.
Because there was much more, I think, separation between the two older children and their youngest sibling.
Right. They both got to go to Wimbledon with their mom and dad. And I love the behind the scenes of seeing them be like, we're going to get this tennis ball for our little brother. He's not here.
I know, that was so cute.
But the two of them got to go.
They did. And I think, I think it's a really important thing for us to remember that at the end of the day, they are 3 children. They're 3 children living in unimaginable circumstances, but they are children.
Right.
And, it's important that Louis, as a young boy, is not put in situations where he might feel uncomfortable, that he's not, put in situations that might overtire him, that might compromise his schoolwork, so on and so forth, blah, blah,
He's
blah.
still so young.
Yes, and I think that we will see much more of him in the future, but I think it's nice that, all 3 kids aren't required to do all things all at once.
Right. And also they have this big move coming up, which we touched on earlier this year as well, that they're in the process of moving. So that'll be a big thing for them. That, of course, was big news for the royal family, that they are moving into a new home. Mm-hmm. They're leaving their house that they were in.
Yeah. So that's really, it's huge news, to be honest. It's not like they're moving into a castle by any stretch of the imagination, right. But what everyone is telling us from kind of within the inner royal circles is that Kate and William view this new home, which is still in Windsor, where they've been based for the past few years, but they very much view this home not only as a kind of fresh start after Kate's diagnosis, her treatment, all of that kind of stuff, but also they see this very much as their forever home, and they plan to continue living there even after William becomes king. So, they're not going to be rattling around Buckingham Palace, which these days is much more of a tourist attraction than it is a home.
Right.
And, I think they are very much determined to make their own kind of traditions as far as being members of the royal family, and in the future being, the monarch. As far as all of those things are concerned, they're kind of really playing a game of compromise here, where they're doing everything that they feel they should, but kind of getting rid of traditions that they don't feel suit them or their children.
Yeah.
Which is really great.
And
we're
entering 2026, that's kind of an outlook for everyone, I feel like. Another big thing for the family that happened was we finally heard that King Charles and Prince Harry reunited for one of the first times.
I think reunite is a strong word, personally.
Had a meeting?
Met.
Okay,
I think is, it was really very brief. It all took place behind closed doors. It is said to have gone well. I don't think that anyone should be popping the champagne and toasting to the end of the rift between Harry and his family.
Right.
However, I do think that it is a step forward, a baby step, but a step nonetheless. And, if we can see more frequency in those meetings, then I think we may be working our way at least towards an amicable relationship between father and son.
Yeah.
It remains to be seen what will happen between William and Harry. William was not in the meeting.
Right.
We do not think he met with Harry. He obviously still hasn't met both of Harry's children. So that rift remains, and I think will carry on well into 2026. But at least we have seen progress with King Charles and his son.
For sure. And of course, finally, for our biggest moments from the royal family, we would be remiss if we did not mention that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor lost all of his titles and officially is no longer considered Prince Andrew. He's now Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that is it kind of happened in stages. Rather than jump off a cliff, it was more like he was pushed down it.
Right.
He first announced that he had, willingly given up his titles and his honors. So those included the Duke of York, all of his military titles and honors, basically anything that had kind of been bestowed upon him. Mm-hmm. But just a few days later, Buckingham Palace announced that Andrew would no longer be Prince Andrew, that this title, which, let's remind everyone, was given to him via his birth. This was not a title that was bestowed upon him because simply he was a member of the royal family or because he, of his military performance. This is something that he was given as a result of his birth, as a result of his heritage. So to have that stripped from him was, I think, yeah, about as
Big news.
low as you can go.
Right.
And I very much doubt we will be seeing much of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor in 2026.
Right. And it seems like the royal experts are all saying it does have some ties to his relation with Epstein and everything going on with that, which is too complicated to even get into now.
And
But
certainly not a highlight of the royal family.
absolutely not. And nor one that we're trying to celebrate. So we're just going to leave it at that. He doesn't have his titles anymore. That was big news for the royal family. They had a lot going on in 2025. We'll definitely have to check out what they do in 2026.